Greetings. I'm Tom Edwards. I'm a longtime faculty member with the Engineering Management Department here and a practitioner of management of engineering organizations for several decades. The first chart that we're looking at is a quote by Norm Augustine from the Wall Street Journal recently. It sums up nicely what we try to do throughout the engineering management program. Focus and encourage students to develop critical thinking, creative problem solving, and communication. Let me ask you a question. Once we decide, you decide, I decide, that we want to be the individual that leads our team, our department, or our company, what do we need to know beyond engineering? We often receive this first opportunity to lead based on our engineering success. So why study management beyond that? The second chart is a photograph of the Duomo, or the cathedral in Florence, Italy. Now this dome that you're looking at in this photograph was an architectural masterpiece of the 15th century. This dome is constructed using 25,000 tons of brick. 25,000 tons of brick. It's a marvel. If you ever get the opportunity to visit it, I'd certainly encourage you to do so. Well, the engineers of the 15th century that constructed this masterpiece did not have the structural analysis tools that every sophomore engineering student takes for granted today. Recall, this is the 15th century. Hooke's law about stress and strain wasn't developed until the 17th century, 200 years later. Therefore, the cranes and winches that hauled the brick from the street level up to where the construction was happening were designed based on the humors of the wood used in their construction. The architects and engineers believed that certain woods had a dry humor or a moist humor or a hard or a soft, and that you could match hard with moist, but you couldn't match soft with dry. And as long as you matched the humors, the device would be fine. Needless to say, countless accidents occurred when this machinery failed and the load of bricks fell to the streets below. In our day, smart engineers sometimes have difficulty transitioning to managers. As technical people, it's natural for us to equate analysis with the mathematical manipulation of physical laws. Then we base our actions on the results of these analysis. No engineer today would select a material without an analysis of the required properties. However, as we discussed before, the medieval engineers who built the Duomo often based their machinery design on the humors of wood, because they didn't have the stress analysis tools available to them. Management deals with people and how they interact with each other in organizations. People are a lot more complex than stress analysis. This makes it difficult to tease apart the principles of how people and organizations function. Nevertheless, there is a science that studies this and makes principles and theories available to management practitioners like us. We need to understand these principles and theories and apply them to managing people and organizations. If we just make it up as we go along or hip shoot our way through situations based on our gut instincts, we're really being analogous to the medieval engineers whose designs failed because they didn't have the analytical tools available to them. Now, don't get me wrong on this. Creativity, judgment factors, they're critical to developing effective leadership. But we need to start with the theories and principles that organization researchers and experienced practitioners have made available to us. Now, the third chart is a summary of the thinking and the research of John Kotter, a very highly respected management scholar. And he breaks management down into two constituents. One is leadership, and the other is management. Management, as this chart indicates, is about managing complexity, things. It's about schedules, it's about terms and conditions in contracts, it's about budgets, it's all of these hardcore nuts and bolts. And John Kotter subsequently subdivides this management of complexity into three sub-tier areas: budgeting and planning, organizing and staffing, controlling and problem solving. The other side of this dichotomy of what a manager's job is leadership, which is about change. It's about aligning people. It's about, the three sub-tier activities here are vision, aligning people, getting them to buy into the vision that you've generated, motivating and inspiring. And you can see there's some crosstalk, if you will, between these two. Just look at the first line. Leadership is about developing the vision. Well, management is about the plan to accomplish that vision and what budget's required. And you really need to have both. So what we try to do here in the engineering management program, and this is shown by the fourth chart, and the fourth chart continues Professor Cotter's dichotomy between management and leadership, and superimposes on it the engineering management curriculum, where you can see that for the management of complexity, management of things, some of the core courses that address this, economics for engineering management, 2 courses in financial management, 2 courses in managerial statistics, and 2 courses in operations research. Now, this is really the real deal, the hardcore tools required for this management of complexity. And the adjoining side of this, the leadership, that's about change in people, well, the 2 courses in engineering management, one's the basics of management, the other is about creative management, communications, and problems in human relations, organizational behavior, how people work together in organizations. And then the capstone course, the problems in engineering administration, attempts to bridge these two and bring it all together in how do you provide a leadership vision for your organization, your department, and how do you put a plan in place to make that happen? How do you use both sides of John Cotter's dichotomy of a manager's job? And the fifth chart, the last chart here, is what I'll humbly call the pyramid of managerial wisdom. And what we try to do here is infuse this into many of our courses, where the basics of what you need, the base of the pyramid, if you will, is content knowledge. This is the things that you have to know, the equations you have to know, the understanding of the legal infrastructure of organizations. This is the content knowledge. Go a little bit higher up the pyramid, and it's about skills. And skills are how to skillfully, if you will, manipulate the content knowledge or make use of the content knowledge to come up with creative solutions to business problems, organizational problems, engineering management problems. So developing some certain skill. On the top of the pyramid is judgment. Judgment is impossible to learn in the classroom. Judgment is what you're going to learn out in the world as you take the content knowledge and the skills that we've addressed in this program and deploy them in solving problems for your organization. And I would encourage you to reflect mindfully on this experiences as you apply these skills and content knowledge to organizational problems. Judge the outcome, and how did it work, and what could you have done better, and what didn't quite work, and refine your approach based on that. That's the road to managerial judgment, is starting with the basics, applying them, and then either gaining confidence in what does work or critically evaluating what doesn't work and change it so that it works for your specific organization. Hopefully this has been helpful, and I will look forward to seeing many of you in my classes. Thank you.